I got asked by several people to look into the violent, unacceptable actions of ICE in San Francisco that just occurred. So I took some time and did a little digging, and I want to share with you, it's really important that we bear witness to what the American Gestapo is doing all across the country. It is crucially important that we not let what they are doing be normalized in this country. We should be horrified every time we witness it. I know I keep saying this, but think back to a year ago. What is now attempting to be normalized, and they are trying to make commonplace all across this country, especially now that the Republicans have handed over $150 billion for the next 4 years to the American Gestapo to add 10,000 members to their ranks so that they can terrorize every community across this country. Think about what you would have thought seeing these things unfold in the United States of America just a year ago. And now it's like daily on the news.
Fuera de una corte, agentes de inmigración se llevaban arrestado a un hombre que acudió a una comparecencia ahí. Los manifestantes intentaron evitar que se lo llevaran en una camioneta y hubo jalones, golpes, empujones. Finalmente, los agentes sí se marcharon con el inmigrante.
Now, early today on Wednesday, July 9th, this happened yesterday, by the way, July 8th. Early today, when I started digging into this, couldn't find very many sources that had covered it. But about 3 hours ago, the New York Times actually put out a piece. My original source for this story was the San Francisco Chronicle. Their title for their piece on it was "Protesters Cling to Departing ICE Van After Arrest at Immigration Court." They said immigration court was again the scene of chaos and clashes between authorities and protesters. They called the protesters a swarm. They also said that roughly 30 protesters attempted to block ICE agents from escorting a person to a van outside the courthouse. You mean protesters attempted to stop ICE from abducting somebody who showed up to their court hearing, who is trying to follow the law and go through the immigration process. We know that ICE has been using this as their strategy now, right? They are using the court system. When people are trying to follow the law and the procedure, they are working through their asylum status, they are working through the proper channels and pathways to get their green cards, to become permanent residents, to be able to stay in this country. And a lot of them have orders that say they cannot be removed from this country because a judge acknowledges they are going through the asylum process. They are working through the very deeply flawed process of our courts in order to gain legal status. You have to be in this country in order to apply for asylum. So these people are doing everything right. If they miss a court date, then now suddenly ICE will be like, oh, well, you couldn't bother to follow our procedures, so boom, into a concentration camp you go. It's a catch-22. If they show up to their court hearing, they often can't even get in to see the judge because ICE is waiting. They're lining the hallways. We saw in New York City that they're lining the hallways waiting to grab people out of courthouses. So that's what happened yesterday. It's interesting to me that the San Francisco Chronicle framed this as protesters were throwing themselves on top of the car. I mean, to a lot of folks, it looks like ICE drove through protesters, risking grave bodily harm. What is going on here that justifies this kind of state-sanctioned brutality and violence? I want to know, because the people they're snatching from courthouses have committed no crimes. These aren't violent criminals that justify this kind of behavior. These are unarmed protesters advocating against the illegal actions of this regime, the terrorization of our immigrants, who again have committed no crimes. They're not being investigated as gang members. They're not being investigated as, like rapists and murderers. The regime has given up all pretense that they were ever interested in violent thugs and criminals, right? We know that what they're after are decent, hardworking people who have done nothing wrong. Stephen Miller advocated for 3,000 immigrants a day to be rounded up into these for-profit concentration camps run by private corporations that are getting billions and billions of our taxpayer dollars, right? He advocated that ICE focus on non-criminals. So there's no pretense whatsoever that they're doing anything in the interest of our public safety. When autocrats initially target a group for ethnic cleansing, they often claim that what they are doing is protecting the majority population. That we need to do this. We need to strip away some of your rights because we are only going to target these people, right? And we're doing it to keep you safe. Let us just go a little bit beyond the limit. Let us just roll back some of that due process. We're doing it for your safety. We're looking out for you, right? Okay, Trumpers might have believed that in the beginning, but we are way, way past that. Nobody can pretend that what the government is doing is in our best interest. It's hurting our economy, it's hurting our neighbors, people we love and care for. It's damaging communities all across this country. It's wasting hundreds of billions of our taxpayer dollars. They've got money for raids, but no money for Medicaid. Now, here's another angle of what was happening outside the courthouse. Look at this guy. Hang on, look at this guy right here. This guy. This guy. As long as we're talking about how none of this is normal, none of these beer-bellied army surplus-clad chuddies are real law enforcement. These are local bounty hunters. We've heard that they're prison guards. They're whatever dudes that are deputized by ICE that are getting their big fat, it's like $42,000 bonus for signing on to terrorize their fellow Americans, to terrorize immigrants, to violate all our rights. These are Oath Keepers, white supremacists, January 6th insurrectionists, Proud Boys. These are militiamen who have fantasized about brutalizing people, especially brown people, for a long time. As you saw in that video, they're not skilled, they're not trained, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're just going to use force. They have no training in de-escalation techniques. As I said in another video, they don't want to de-escalate, they want to escalate. They want to find a reason to trump up charges against you. They want you to escalate so that they can throw you to the ground, handcuff you, and charge you with a federal crime and stick you in prison, because they want to chill dissent. They don't want people advocating for their rights. They don't want people who are defending democracy. They want you to be quiet and let them roll over every single county all across this nation. Every town, every jurisdiction, every courthouse, every hospital, every school. They want to be able to do what they want with impunity. They want to be outside of, above the law. They want you to not question a single thing that these brown shirts are doing. I do want to say here something that I said in reference to the protesters at the ICE facility on Macadam Avenue in Portland, Oregon. I have a kind of similar sentiment here. I have so much compassion and empathy for how big these folks' hearts are, how much they care. They're willing to put their bodies on the line. They're willing to put their freedom on the line to stand up for what they believe is right, to stand up against injustice and oppression. I commend them for that. But I also would like to suggest that there may be some strategies that could be far more successful and less likely for people to be brutalized. I know in an earlier video I talked about how there have been members of the clergy that are escorting people to their court dates. I really feel like a good strategy that communities need to tap into right away is a task force of people who are willing to escort immigrants to their hearings. Clergy, a big one, absolutely. Not just Catholic priests, as was done in San Diego, but definitely Catholic clergy. No matter where you live, you should be having dedicated nuns and priests and bishops and whoever else amongst your ranks escort people to their immigration hearings. But also, like, what about veterans? What about service members showing up in uniform? I know we had a gentleman whose sons escorted him in their full military uniforms to make sure that he safely got to court and back. We need more escorts for folks so that not only are they able to get to their court date and back, but they're not abducted by ICE anywhere in that process. I also mentioned there is a group that will help immigrants move their court hearings, their immigration hearings, to Zoom online so that they don't have to go to the courthouse at all. And we all need to be sharing that. And I really encourage you, if you are an attorney or you work with an immigrants' rights group in your area, how can y'all help immigrants file the motions in court to move their hearings online? There's so many nonviolent successful strategies that we can employ. Nonviolence does not mean passivity. It doesn't mean that you just let what's going to happen happen. No, nonviolent resistance is active resistance. And there are a number of these nonviolent strategies that we can and should be employing right now to help protect our immigrants. Now's the time when we really need to be strategic in the ways that we are supporting our immigrants and we are standing up for our rights.